Hello there, welcome back to Tranquility du Jour, nourishing conversations about living a full and meaningful life with doses of tranquility. This is episode 517. I'm your host, Kimberly Wilson, bringing you tranquility since 2005. Today I'm talking with Meg Nordman about her new book, Have Yourself a Minimalist Christmas. Learn ways to embrace minimalism this holiday season, tips for finding financial freedom, and ways to simplify despite the holiday hustle. And do me a favor and hit subscribe in your favorite podcast app so you don't miss an episode. And if you'd like some of the past episodes, be sure to head over to kimberlywilson.com/podcast, where you will find a link to download the TDJ podcast app, and then you will have all the podcast episodes with you at all times. And this is available for iPhone and Android. And those of you new to Tranquility du Jour, a big welcome. Delighted to have you here. And there is a link to find out more about us if you're new over in the show notes, or just head to kimberlywilson.com and you'll find a new here button. And you'll find the show notes for this episode at kimberlywilson.com/517. One thing I know about you is that you love books. And I also know it can be tricky to find the time, which is why Audible is an excellent resource to listen anywhere from various devices, your iPhone, tablet, computer, and you can pick up wherever you left off. And I hope you'll be following along this month as we read Buy Yourself the Effing Lilies by Tara Schuster. And of course, you can pick this up on Audible with a free 30-day trial and get your first book for free. Just go to audibletrial.com/tranquility du jour. Happy reading. Meg Nordman is the author of Have Yourself a Minimalist Christmas, a new book published in September and is intended to be read in the fall months in preparation for Christmas. She's also the mother of two messy little girls who are the catalyst for her becoming a minimalist, along with her goal to achieve financial independence in order to retire early. A former newspaper and magazine journalist and editor, she's now a full-time mom who writes, blogs, and speaks about minimalism and creating the luxury of time to pursue the things that matter most to her. She recently launched a podcast on this topic called Journey to Freedom that explores how minimalism and frugality can lead to financial freedom and time freedom. She's excited to share her tips on how to have a simpler, less expensive, and more intentional holiday this season. You can find Meg at megnordman.com. And that's megnordmann.com. Welcome, Meg.
Hi, Kimberly.
Congratulations on your upcoming book, Have Yourself a Minimalist Christmas. Slow down, save money, and enjoy a more intentional holiday.
Thank you so much. It's really exciting.
Oh my gosh, it's so great. And, and as we were talking before we began recording, this couldn't be more timely, right? Like so important and helpful. So tell us a little bit about what led you to write this book.
Sure. Let's see. There's a couple of different facets. The first was my journey into minimalism and my issue with incorporating that with Christmas. First of all, I was borderline hoarder and shopaholic in a previous life here, not too far in the past. And when I had my first kid, the chaos that comes with a toddler who can now pick up things and carry it all around really revealed that to me. I was becoming increasingly, exhausted and depressed and overwhelmed just by keeping up with my house. And eventually, my husband was already a minimalist. He was a surfing nomad before we got together and could survive with just a surfboard and a backpack and had hardly anything of his own in the house. And everything was mine before the relationship started. And it was chaotic. And so he just kind of gently nudged me and kept, just gently saying, if you just decluttered and got rid of these things, they aren't essential. You would have more time. not necessary. And one day I finally had that light bulb moment for myself and realized if I have less things, then I have less things to clean, and therefore I have more time. So I could have time for myself and get my sanity back, time to work on passion projects, time to be more present with my child. And I just started throwing things away. And I'm sure some of your listeners may have experienced these big purges, especially during the pandemic. I know a lot of people just kind of got stir crazy in their houses. And so I did a really good job at clearing the clutter in my house and getting down to the essentials and really embracing the minimalist lifestyle. And we also have a big goal of reaching financial independence by the time my husband is 40. And at the moment, we are 386 days away from declaring financial independence. And so this has been a big goal for a few years. And that meant I needed to stop shopping and spending so much money. So I had it twofold. I was purging all the stuff, and I was really learning how to stop the shopping habit and not listen to the marketing messages. Then Christmas happened and the marketing ramps up, and the messaging that you get from society and culture just all around you, especially in the digital world with Instagram and Pinterest, which are two platforms I really love and I refuse to give up because they do bring me joy. I'm just a very visual person, but it was really seeping into what I thought I had to provide for my child. I thought that I needed to give her all the things, all the pretty things. And I was watching all these, Instagram influencers with these perfectly curated images of a little wooden guitar with a little wooden rocking horse. And I had to have that for my child. We all want, our child to wake up and have that magical Christmas. And I was confusing the magic of Christmas with a lot of stuff. So I was undermining my own efforts by decluttering and not shopping all year, and then just going crazy at Christmas time. And then I was also in all of these minimalist groups on Facebook, and I started noticing every fall the same questions being asked. We were all having these same pain points. And the number one question I noticed in every group getting asked 10,000 times every fall season was, hey, I've been decluttering and I'm doing really good. We're all minimalist now, but grandmother or my best friend or my aunt, insert some close family member or friend, is sabotaging me. I keep telling her we're minimalists and we don't want stuff, and she keeps bringing in more and more and more stuff, and she's sabotaging all of my efforts, and I feel like she's doing it on purpose. And what do I do? How do I tell her to stop buying things? And so I just kind of had another light bulb moment of, hey, I've read all these minimalist books and listened to all these podcasts. I'm in all these groups, and I haven't seen any books about this season where minimalists struggle, and people that are new to it as well, whether you're well practiced or brand new to this lifestyle of less or simplicity or slow living, we're all struggling with the consumerism that swirls around us during the season. And so I just started writing.
I love it. No, it's such a great idea because you're right. It's like that is the one time where, or birthdays or, anything of like celebration, right? Where it's just like,
exactly.
What? Does my kid need a third bike or my dog need like his 50th toy? And so I love that. Well, one of the things though, I just want to circle back on that you just mentioned that just to be clear for our listeners is financial independence. So you probably follow Mr. Money Mustache and,
oh, yes.
All these great people. And so can you just explain kind of what that is to our listeners for anyone who may not know?
Oh, yes. We are definitely mustachians as people who follow his work call themselves. Yes. So financial independence means that you no longer require a typical paycheck in order to survive and live your life. We will no longer need income from the traditional paycheck source, income source. So we have been working really hard to create passive income so that we can get all of our time back to live the way we want to. And we've done that through real estate investments. Well, the very first step is to get out of debt, which is hard in itself. And so we accomplish that. And then you're finally able to save. And you take that savings and you put it into investments. So we did real estate investments and we've done stock investments. And then the other side of the coin is you can reach financial independence a lot faster if you can make your living expenses less. And so that was where frugality and minimalism went hand in hand for us. So we just really, put the foot on the brakes as far as spending and realizing that we had everything we needed and everything you needed to be happy, that we actually had this incredibly luxurious life of abundance without all the little things that society tells you you need. And we're pretty extreme, pretty hardcore. My husband bikes 14 miles a day to work and back. And we're down to one vehicle. We've downsized to a little 750 square foot beach cottage. And I was used to like 2,000 square foot homes. And we rent and instead buy real estate property instead of the typical house mortgage, which can weigh a lot of people down, and have it one used car and just things like that. And we're just really, really conscious of our spending. And so in 386 days, something like that, it's on the calendar, we will be able to declare financial independence, which means my husband can quit his job if he wants. Probably what's going to happen is he's going to go in and say, hey, can I just work 3 days a week instead of 6 days a week? And then we have a goal number in mind where we are planning to move to Costa Rica or Panama or Nicaragua, probably Costa Rica. And the living expenses are even less there than in the US. That's called geo arbitrage. And we should be able to do woodworking and art and make music and write books and raise our kids in the jungle and live on like $1,000 a month and not worry about money, because we will have far more than that rolling in each month from passive income. So sorry if that was a longer explanation than you wanted, but I'm really, really passionate about this. And I've actually written a book about it that's not published yet, but it'll be out next year.
Yeah, no, so smart, because I tell you, I think so many people are drawn to this. It's like this idea of, okay, I'm even looking around kind of my little office and it's packed with books. I have a big book buying problem. And, and then just like, candles, which books and candles, I'll never give up, and twinkle lights and flowers, but it's just a lot of stuff. Right. And, and so this idea of really paring down, and even as you said, about stopping the spending. I went to Target yesterday for the first time since the pandemic hit, maybe since this whole year. I was like a maniac, I just went in for a few things like mascara and Tums and, just like random stuff. But then, it's like I saw a few other things that I needed, but I'm like, I finally got to the point years ago where I just wouldn't allow myself to go to Target anymore because I just loved Target. You come
I know, I do too.
A new shabby chic book or stationery, right?
I have to call my sister when I walk in. She just expects it at this point, just so I can talk to her to get past the dollar section that they put right at the entrance. And as soon as I'm past it, I let her know, and she's like, okay, bye.
Oh my God. I love that.
Don't look at it. Don't look at it.
There's cute stuff in there. Of course, I looked at it. And I picked up 2 Star Wars coloring books for my boyfriend. He does not color. Do you know what I mean? But I'm like, look, Yoda's on the cover. So I know it's ridiculous.
They're brilliant with the marketing and the psychology and placement. They really have experts that are basically scientists on the back end of these things that know exactly how to squeeze that $100, $200, even if you went in there for one thing that should have cost you $12.
Totally.
It happens every time.
Every time. It's craziness. And so I'm curious for you, how you were able to, and this ties in, of course, with your book, but how you were able to then kind of stop the frivolous spending. Because what's funny, Meg, is I got him 2 coloring books because they had 2 different covers, where I didn't realize it was the same coloring book inside, so you're just like, okay, it was $1. So it's not like some big thing, but still I'm like, I was scammed,
I know. Oh my gosh. Save it for a birthday gift for a kid.
Totally.
Well, let's see. A couple of things. One was I found books that really laid it out there on what was happening on the back end, like I just mentioned. So, and I talk about this in my book too, understanding what was happening with the marketing and the algorithms and how they were able to track my search history, and they can see what zip code I'm in. Um, this sounds conspiracy theory-ish, but it's not. It's actually fact. And I got this from a book written in 2015, so I'm sure it's even worse now in 2020. But they know my zip code is a higher income level zip code. So if I look something up when I'm shopping online, the price that I see might be higher, usually is higher than the price that someone in a zip code just 30 minutes down the street that's a lower income level, they're going to see a different price. And just understanding that kind of stuff and knowing how it works, how they tracked me from my microphone on my phone when I just said that I was interested in something, and how that is now in big data collection, and they know exactly what I'm into. I mean, to the point where I'm noticing that the imagery is reflecting my style. Like I don't know if you can see this little cane back chair. I'm getting advertisements with the same chair in it that's not about chairs. It'll be for a business course or something. And like that is starting to creep me out. But just understanding how you're being manipulated helps you to stop being manipulated. And let's see. I also pin things. Like I said, I'm a big Pinterest fan. So I pin all the little frivolous things that I want, and I keep them in little organized boards, and it feels like I get that same dopamine rush as if I had bought it. Like I'm collecting it, and I don't feel like I've lost the beautiful thing because it's still there. I still have access to the link. If I really, really can't sleep at night for the next 7 nights, then I can go back and buy the thing. But usually I forget all about it. I don't go and peruse those boards because I don't want to be reminded. But it just gives me that feeling like I did get that pretty little lace skirt that I saw, or whatever it was. There's all sorts of things I'm into, but I don't purchase hardly anything. I mean, but that's been a really good just mind hack for myself.
And do you set up budgets like for, household expenses and entertainment and medical, do you have like kind of strict budgets of sort and on holiday gifts?
Yeah, we do have a strict budget at this point in the game. I don't even look at it that much because our spending has gotten so on autopilot. We just don't spend. But in the very beginning, probably for the first 2 years, I did have the Excel spreadsheet, and I would manually, even though I know that there's apps and software that does this for you, like Mint or something like that, I liked the pain that I felt by manually putting in every single credit card purchase and bank purchase into the Excel spreadsheet, so I could feel this sounds horrible, but I could feel the pain of I didn't need that coffee that day, and I didn't need that Target purchase that day, and that Amazon purchase with the one click, zero friction. And so that just kind of retrained me. And I don't even do that as often anymore. I used to do it every single month, but that was the way that I was able to see it. And so it's one thing to log into a software and they have the pretty little pie charts and circle graphs and things like that to show you where you're spending your money. But to manually type it in, like I just felt that little knife in my side twist a little bit more.
Well, yeah, because I mean, it's amazing. One of the things during the pandemic, at least that my partner and I have noticed, is like, okay, definitely, not spending what we were, or, kind of like if we were, out to lunch or would pick up, something at Starbucks or whatever. I mean, I haven't even been to Starbucks since the pandemic hit, but, much more on groceries, okay, which is fine, but it's just interesting to notice, all those just like, oh, you just hand your credit card over. It's like, he was shocked whenever I told him, or he saw, because I purchased one time online, like we order in advance, like the Starbucks iced matcha latte. And he's like, that's $5 something. I was like, yeah, what does your stuff cost? Because he just gets like a coffee. It's like a couple dollars. But, I was like, wow, but you realize like $5+ because I always get like the non-dairy milk, and that used to cost more. I think they're going to stop that. But, it's just like, that's crazy. If you give yourself a treat of that, every day. I mean, that's $125. No, that's not. Okay. That's $25 a week, right? And then, that's $100 a month. That's crazy.
And another mindset switch for me, once we started learning about investments, is I see the potential that $5 could become. Now that I know how compounding interest works and how just putting $5 into a stock can turn into something pretty mega in about 10 years, it blows my mind. So that was one way to stop with the petty, spending, because I was just like, well, if I could just collect all those little dollars and put those into investments and let it grow tenfold in the next 10 years, then, I could be hanging out in Costa Rica in a hammock.
Totally. Have you been to Costa Rica?
Yes.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, we used to love traveling pre-pandemic.
Yeah. Their papaya is like worth a trip to Costa Rica just to consume. Yeah. It's like so good.
About 100 papaya trees in our yard. Now we've tried to recreate our tropical love in the backyard since we can't leave the country right now.
Oh my God, I love it. I would die for a papaya tree. So let's talk about too, with minimalism and the holidays, how it helps you kind of be more intentional with your time. And, one of the things that I love, having followed the Minimalists, those two guys for years, is how, they did say, like, ask, for the holidays to not ask for, things, but to ask for consumables. And I love that. So like, I'll always get my partner coffee, and, I always ask for things like, tea or kind of experiences, or, Amazon gift cards so I can buy more books. So that's probably not appropriate, but I'm curious for you, what is it that you have found that helps you kind of be more intentional?
Yeah. So there's two different sides to that. So there's intentionality for myself, with my own spending. And then there's asking others not to spend so much on you, or not to bring in so many items. So as far as asking other family members and friends to rein it in, you don't want to come at it with, hey, we're minimalists now, don't buy us stuff. It's just, that's too abrupt. And you'd be surprised how many people do that. I see that in the minimalist groups that I'm in, that people say, well, I told them to stop. And I'm like, well, you just don't do it that way. I think the best way to go about it is to include them in genuine, authentic conversations of the whole entire process of, hey, mother-in-law, we have decluttered the whole house, and now the kids are less stressed out. They're able to focus on their homework. They are playing more independently because they don't have so many toys around them. We're able to get out of the house faster because we only have 2 shoes to pick from instead of 25. And just kind of genuinely share your experience of what those pain points were when you had too many things, and then how life has gotten better. And then, if it's appropriate, you can kind of say, oh, I'm a little worried about the holidays coming up. It might, wreck everything that we've got set up so well, and let them kind of come to that conclusion of, oh, well, what can I get you that won't do that? And that's when you can suggest to them, well, we'd really like this special coffee that's ground at the local coffee shop. It's a special treat for us on Sundays. Or, the kids would love to, well, I would say go to the zoo, but I don't know, with the pandemic, there might be less experienced things like that. But yeah, if you can prompt them with the experience gifts and the consumables. The other thing that I would suggest is to give them lists. So some people you just can't change, and they're not going to understand it, and they get their joy from that dopamine hit they get from buying the item and then giving the item. They get it again. So they're experiencing joy, and, some grandmothers might blink at you like you're crazy for telling them not to buy things for their grandchildren. So you don't have to do that, but you can try to control a little bit what types of things come in your house. So if you're trying to have less plastic toys with blinky lights, and you want more Montessori wooden type toys for free play, then start pinning that in a special Pinterest board, which again is my favorite place to do it because you can pull links from everywhere. Or if she's on Amazon and she's comfortable with that, then do an Amazon wish list or a Target wish list or Walmart, or however you can compile these things into like one single spot. You don't want to overwhelm them with links and wish lists. But if you could just have one simple place to say, oh, this is the kind of things that we really need or that we're leaning towards. So yeah, I would do it that way, lists and then just genuine conversation, so that hopefully eventually, and it might take a few years for them to really see your lifestyle change and to get on board with that. But if you're including them in the pain points and the happiness and ease that comes with the solution, they might get on board and just rein it in for your sake.
Well, and one of the things that you also have in the book is around decorations, right? And, I used to have, like a couple plastic bins that were filled with just vintage Santa and a vintage angel that I picked up when I was in freaking college. And I just recently donated those. But, just things that I really loved, but, you bring out for a month a year, which is great, but it's just more stuff than I needed. And I know people love to decorate for the holidays, so we can go a little overboard. Yeah. And so I'm curious, how do you encourage people to just kind of simplify the decor?
Exactly. And in times like these, we need all the joy that we can get. So I'm not telling people to not decorate. That's for sure. I love Christmas. It is one of my favorites. It's Christmas and Mardi Gras for me. And we decorate for Mardi Gras too. But what I would do is to look at the bins. Like you said, you had things from college. I'm losing track of time these days. It's either a year ago or 2 years ago. I decided I would declutter the boxes that I had left at my mother-in-law's barn. So I'd gotten rid of all the things in my house, and then I realized I was taking up square footage in her life, in her space, and that was really horrible. So I went in and I opened up these 7 boxes, which is insane to me, of Christmas ornaments that I wasn't even using. They weren't in my house. And inside were a lot of ornaments from my mother when she had her very first apartment. So, and they weren't special. There was nothing beautiful or ornate or anything. They were just regular balls from Walmart in the 80s, dinged up, scratched up. But I had been carrying them in these 7 boxes from state to state, apartment to apartment for all these years. And I guess there was that guilt that you get, like an heirloom, like it's been saved for this long. So I felt like I had to hold on to them. And it was as if I was treasuring her memories for her of her first apartment. Like she had transferred them to me or something, but they weren't my memories. And I finally had all these, there's a lot of internal work that goes into decluttering, where you start asking yourself questions and then you're able to let go. So I looked at these 7 boxes and answered all the questions for all the things, and every single thing left went on the side of the road or to a thrift shop, except for 2 little white deer. And I cannot believe I held on to those 7 boxes for that long.
Well, and what's crazy too is not even just holding on to the boxes, but also paying to store the boxes, right? So it's that's where God bless America. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so crazy. And that's how I had to start looking at it, was these boxes are taking up square footage, so I'm paying their rent. And is it worth it? So now I've got it down to, I think I've got 2 boxes in my little 750 square foot house. And I've also realized that the style of stuff that I'm really into is more just natural evergreen. And I love the citrus garlands, which is why it's on the cover of my book. And in all of these ways that you can decorate with natural items that can just go in the compost when you're done. They don't need storage. So I've started to try to embrace that and make a few of my own little things, not get crazy with it and overwhelm myself, but just a few pretty little things and sprigs here and there. And it really brings in that holiday cheer. And I don't have to take up all the space in my one little closet all year long.
I love that. It's so smart. And, the kind of last thing I wanted to ask about, which I really like, is a chapter in your book called Focusing on Presence, Not Presents. And, you've got Get Grounded, Digital Declutter, and A Childlike View. So can you just tell us a little bit about what focusing on presence versus presents would look like, or could look like?
The first is, make the holidays more about the experience and the time together. That togetherness is what really Christmas is about. And so I have another chapter that's about simple traditions and just kind of going through and curating and editing what you want your family to experience that Christmas and make it more about those moments and not so much about what do you want from Santa. There's usually people just ask their kids that over and over, and there's this huge buildup about the toys and the gifts. Or even, if you don't have kids, just amongst spouses, there can be a lot of buildup to that moment. And it doesn't have to be about that 1 hour on Christmas morning. It can be about all the other hours for the entire month. The other thing that's really distracting through the holidays can be the just digital world that we also live in. And we can let these apps and social media distract us, and just being very, very intentional from the get-go as soon as the holidays start out, and putting limits on yourself and taking steps to maybe put some of those apps in the very, very back of your phone. You know how you can slide it onto different wallpaper? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
So I like to put my social media on the very back. So if I have to swipe 7 times, there's a little more friction. And so that way I don't have to completely delete any accounts, but I'm not visiting them very often because I don't have the visual cues, and taking off notifications and things like that. There's a lot of steps you can take to get rid of that. And then also have in there a grounding exercise that helps me. And I learned that from some podcast a couple of years ago, and I even did it last night to help myself go to sleep. And it's 5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can hear, 3 things that you can feel, 2 things you can taste, 1 thing you can smell. And I just kind of go through those, and it puts you back into the present moment. And so you stop thinking about the past, and you stop thinking about everything you got to do in the future, and you're focused on all the senses right now. And every time I do that exercise, I get so much more present with my day and with my children. And so I wanted to include that in the book as well.
I love that. I've heard of that. That's a really great practice and process.
So helpful.
To get grounded and in the moment, right? Because, we're so distracted by so many things these days. So I love that.
Exactly.
And, Meg, my last question for you is, the name of this podcast is Tranquility du Jour. So I'm curious, how do you find tranquility in your everyday, especially as you think about minimalism, financial independence, and really trying to live simply with intention, I think is the big thing that I'm hearing from you.
Absolutely. I would say my morning routine is super important to me, especially just to start my day with some peace and tranquility. So I have a ritual with a latte. It's a honey latte, and I even have this little chai mix. And so it just really kind of triggers me into this peaceful spot. I have my little armchair, and I give myself a whole, 30 minutes, maybe an hour if I'm really lucky, to just sink into this armchair and enjoy the heck out of this coffee. And then I have a big yoga mat that I love, and I tune into Yoga by Adrienne on YouTube. I don't know if you've heard of her.
Yes.
Yeah, she's so just her whole demeanor is so peaceful. And she has these 20-minute little yoga routines, and that's all I need. I honestly don't exercise very much. I ride my bike a lot, but I don't have an exercise routine, but just getting in this yoga and stretching has helped me. It still helps my core get strong, and I'm still able to hold planks and things like that. But the whole process is very peaceful and gentle. And then if I find my kids are being very good and I have some extra time, I also just hop into YouTube and ask, look for some quick meditation exercises. And I've just started doing this a couple of months ago. So it's a little bit more advanced than my simple grounding exercise. But there are people on there that have these wonderful guided meditations. And if I can just close the door to my bedroom and sit down and listen to these people and put myself into that headspace, that's amazing. That happens maybe once a week where I get that little extra time to do that. But so really important for me to prioritize that before I check my email, before I go and handle the mess in the kitchen sink and the laundry and all the other things that I have on my to-do list for the day. If I can prioritize myself and my mind, my health piece, then I can have a much more tranquil day and go at my to-do list in a gentle way rather than a frenzied way.
I love that. It totally makes sense. It totally makes sense. And I love it. And thank you so much, because I do think that this is a really needed book. And listeners, I will, of course, have a link to it in the show notes. And thank you just for being here with us and for sharing your ideas. And I don't think we've ever had anyone on really talking about financial independence. And yet it is such kind of a hot thing right now. So thank you for, kind of the information all about that and how one goes about it.
Well, when my next book comes out, I will nerd out.
Okay, good. Good. And Meg, if you have any particular resources that you'd like, to share with our listeners about maybe your favorite minimalist books, in addition to your own, of course, or even financial independence, would love that. And I'll put those in the show notes.
Yeah. I have a blog that has all of my favorite books on minimalism and podcasts. And in the same blog, I have another category for financial independence. Those are my two big topics. So I'll send you that, and readers can go and check it out. And it's a great education. It's really changed my life to really focus on those two aspects.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me. This is truly an honor to get to talk to you after listening to you all these months. So thank you so much.
Thank you. So over in the show notes, you'll find a link to find Meg on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, a link to her podcast, and to her book. If you haven't yet joined the Tranquility du Jour Insiders Facebook group, would love to have you. There we share resources, inspiration, make connections, and be part of our online book club. Also, if you're not receiving my weekly love notes, you can sign up for that at kimberlywilson.com/love notes, and you'll also get all sorts of treats whenever you sign up. There's also a link to my 6 books and planner in the show notes, and then ways to follow along Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. You'll also find a link to shop the seasonless, vegan, locally made, eco-friendly clothing line, TDJ by Kimberly. And also, if you have a moment, please share a review of this podcast or any of my books on Amazon or Goodreads. My hope is that it helps others find more tranquility in their lives. Wishing you a wonderful, wonderful week ahead. Thanks for tuning in and inviting me and my guest into your day.